Winter storm warnings continue over parts of the deep south and the southeast, and winter weather advisories are up as far north as the Washington, D.C. area and the southern Delmarva, and even parts of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England could see a little bit of snow tonight. It's already showing up on the radar. We'll talk about that, uh, get into my experience today here in North Georgia, where I got some snow and it's beautiful. And we'll have much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which you can lend your support simply by shopping on Amazon and using the referral link at the top of the chat board. It's simple. Just go in there, search for your stuff, buy what you want, pay for it, and Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there, and it doesn't cost you one extra dime out of your pocket. It's an easy way to do it. And we appreciate those of you who have used the referral link to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast from our affiliate, Amazon. So I
So,
had
Joe,
quite the day here, Joe. Quite the day.
I can imagine.
Well, I woke up this morning a little bit before 6, and the second thing I did was to check the radar. The first thing I did was to text a friend of mine. And then the second thing I did was to check the radar this morning. And there was this big yellow and red east-west band that was sitting along and just south of Atlanta. And there were lighter green echoes to the north. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, I guess the sleet line is running, through just south of Atlanta. Well, it turned out that big area of yellow and red was an area of moderate to S plus. S plus means heavy snow, folks, for those of you who are new to this lingo. And they got 2 to 3 inches all around the metro area of Atlanta, including the downtown. And also the airport got 1.3 inches. And I mean, this probably was somewhat similar to what happened in Atlanta in 2014, which was the great 1 inch snowmageddon, which just shut down all the roadways. But there was so much warning ahead of time, and of course, with the winter storm warnings that went up last night, most people knew to kind of stay off the roads. So it was tough for folks in Metro Atlanta, but it wasn't anything like that. When I was just while looking at some of the cameras of I-75, which was virtually shut down the last time. It was, a few cars here, a few cars there. But I mean, you definitely could see that they had 2 to 3 inches. And I'm 100 miles to the northeast of Atlanta. The Here, we had about 2.5 inches of snow. Started a little after 8 o'clock, and then around 1:32, a brief period of moderate snow before, between say 12:30 and 1:30, and I knew that warm nose was coming, so we changed over to sleet and then freezing rain, and that freezing rain lasted for about an hour, hour and a half, and then it changed to like heavy sleet at 4 o'clock, which lasted about an hour to an hour and a half, and right now I've got. Well, gonna I'm gonna bring up my ring cameras here, and we can take a look. Well, let's start with. It's hard to see because there's not a whole lot of light. Because basically my yard is the woods behind me. But here's a shot from my back from the backyard. And hang on a second, I'm getting there. There it is. So, I mean, you can see it's picking up. There's some very, very fine, light snow falling, and maybe a little bit of freezing drizzle in the mix. Uh, the camera's picking up the flakes very close, but it is light. So there's that. And I think maybe we could go. Here's my front door. Let's go to my front door, and let me get this out of the way. So this is what it looks like outside my front door. That's my Mariner's bell, by the way. That's up on the upper right, and I want to also show, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I want to show, okay, so this is the portable camera that I have. Now that's an old weather station that the old owners left that I never was able to figure out how to work it. They had an account. It's an Accurite weather station, but I don't know what the login and passwords are. So I just left that thing so I could at least see the cups turning with the wind. And the camera's not picking up the very fine, very light snow that is falling. And I want to thank my friend Jose Bermudez who installed all this wonderful stuff for me, by the way, all the cameras and the ring cameras and everything else, because it does come in handy. I knew one day I would get, oh, here's my shed, by the way. I knew one day, oh, look, you can see, Joe, you can see the snowflakes. So this is to the side of my front porch, and that's my driveway that goes all the way down. It's not quite as long as your mansion driveway that you have, but
Ah,
it's long, and my truck is parked out there. And the one thing I found out today, this was something that I've been advocating for years when I lived in New York, that there should be a law that requires you to um, remove all the snow on your vehicle. If you're going to drive it, you got to get all the snow off your vehicle, or you could get a ticket with a nice hefty fine. Well, in
yes.
Georgia, I found out today. I didn't go out driving. I just happened to be watching TV, watching one of the newscasts, and they said that in Georgia law, you have to clear your vehicle of any snow if you're going to drive it. And I applauded. I said, somebody from another state must have heard me, so I'm so happy. Another good reason to be in Georgia.
Well, I once was on the Whitestone Bridge, and I was driving behind a pickup truck, or it was a truck, and there was the top of the truck had maybe 2 inches of snow on it, but it was like maybe it wasn't even snow, maybe it was snow and ice. And all of a sudden, like mid span on the Whitestone Bridge, the whole top of the truck just slid off the ice and the snow. And guess who was right behind him? Yours truly. And
Well,
I said to myself, hit the deck.
yeah. Well, talk about attached at the hip. I had the exact same thing happen to me on the Long Island Expressway. I was behind a box truck at the Glen Cove Road, exit 39. And you know when you go, there's like you go down, you go you go down that hill just before exit 37 at Willis Avenue, and then you start to come up. Well, the same thing happened. A huge rectangular block came out all in one piece and smashed into my windshield. And thankfully, it didn't break my windshield. It scared the absolute daylights out of me.
Yeah, I know
You
exactly how it
know,
feels. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's brutal. And I have
But thankfully you didn't have to go
always,
to thankfully you didn't have to call Safelite to change out your windshield.
I have always made it a point to make sure that uh, the when I would drive I would clean my truck off completely of all snow and ice before I hit the road because, and I used to do it before that particular experience. It just made me scream it even louder that there should be a law.
Yep, there should be. It could be very dangerous in some cases. Now, the question: you don't have well, actually, you probably have more ice than snow, but you don't have a snow blower.
No, and I actually have more snow than ice. I had 2.5 inches of snow, and there's probably about maybe a quarter to a half inch. I took the dog out for a walk before the show, and it's all crunchy, when you walk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it. I just I, I don't know if you feel the same way about this, but when it snows, when you're inside the house and it's snowing outside, there's a certain feel to it. There's a winter feel
Yes.
that's to your environment. And I hadn't really felt that very
Uh,
much in the last few years, but I felt it today. I mean, it was wonderful. And I made comfort food and it was great.
Well, I mean, what we are enjoying now, you and I, in our late life, is something we never could enjoy when we were working. Because
Right.
if we had a situation like this and we happened to be at home, you had to be concerned about the fact that the phone was going to ring any moment from the news director or the executive producer saying, you have to come in, we need you. That's no fun. And I know you and I have driven through our share of snowstorms to get to work, but not to worry about that anymore.
Nope.
You know, that's
We sure don't. We got a super chat hit already. Thank you. Who is it? Let's see. It's Ken Musillo. Thank you, Ken, for hitting the tip jar tonight. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to those of you watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast with this deep south snowstorm and snow and ice storm. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. We're here usually Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and we're off Fridays and Saturdays, but because of what's going on tonight here in my land, uh, we're doing an extra show. But we're going to take it back because we're going to take off Sunday. Okay, so mark that down. We're not going to have a show Sunday night, right, folks? So subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on, and of course, if you like the show, what are they supposed to do, Mr. Rayo?
if you like the show, hit the like button so that we can hit 100 likes, and yours truly can ringy dingy his bell. And if we get the 200 likes, we'll blow the horn.
Yes. So, we have a little bit more to go here, probably for another 2 or 3 hours before it should probably start finally end. The back edge of this is in sight. And you can see on the radar, it's actually precipitating rather hard across North Carolina, and then the northern edge of the snow is now into southern Virginia. I'm getting that very fine snow, little bit of freezing drizzle in the mix too. And there's just one little arm left that's going to come through and just enhance itself a little bit between now and 10 o'clock. And then after that, I should be done. Meanwhile, radars are now radars are showing some echoes across New Jersey and Long Island and the Hudson Valley. None of that seems to be reaching the ground,
No,
but
none of it.
yeah, but there is some stuff that might be reaching the ground in parts of South Jersey and definitely back in central and western PA and into Ohio and West Virginia. And then, of course, you've got the southern moisture that's moving east northeast. But between those two systems, Joe, it looks like it looks like you'll probably have a period of overnight of some patchy snow showers or a period of light snow. And I think there's a possibility that you could, get the ground whitened up in some places. Maybe the outside chance in some inland areas, someone gets, in some inland elevated areas, that somebody could get as much as a whole inch from all of this. What
Well,
say you?
the ground certainly is cold enough. Now I know as Renata mentioned on the chat board, and we did get to 40 degrees today. Boy, I tell you, Joe, it really felt good out there for a few hours, sunshine, a few thin clouds, 40 degrees, but most important of all, the wind, which has been unrelenting the last 3 days. Not much in the way of wind for the day today, so it turned out to be a really nice day. But even though the temperatures did go above 40, it's heading down below freezing now, and since a good bulk of whatever we see in terms of snow will come in the nighttime hours, probably after midnight tonight, and carry over into the early part of the day tomorrow. So whatever falls will stick. And you're right. If we get any place that gets an inch of snow, you really push the envelope. Most areas, I think, will probably have less than that, and there may only be in a few places just a coating of snow. But it'll be out there late tonight, be over with before noontime tomorrow. The sun will try to come out tomorrow afternoon, and we should have ourselves a nice, bright, sunny day on Sunday. Monday, too, looks to be nice, with temperatures, again, both Sunday and Monday, well up in the 30s to around 40. And then here we go again, another surge of cold and progressively more windy or blustery weather heading our way for the middle of next week.
Yes, looks like another big cold high is going to be coming down. We still have a ton of winter storm warnings up across Tennessee, northernmost Mississippi, northern Alabama. Too bad Jess Harden isn't on the board tonight. Maybe he would be able to tell us if he got anything where he is, which is south of Birmingham. In northern Georgia, we've got winter storm warnings up. Much of interior South Carolina and much of North Carolina under a winter storm warning. We have winter weather advisories on the eastern flank of that actually reach the coast of North Carolina. Winter storm warnings in southern Virginia, and I actually think they pushed that up a little bit further north, north of Richmond, into south of Washington, D.C., southern West Virginia, Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, advisories in Indiana and Ohio. We have winter weather advisories up for Washington, D.C. I don't know if Baltimore is in it. Let me take a look. Um, Baltimore is just outside the advisory area. Washington, Annapolis, they're in it. The southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula, the southernmost county of Delaware, including Georgetown, Delaware, is in it, and that's about it. And of course, the snow, any snow that falls tonight, is not going to be enough to generate advisories for anywhere in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. A little bit of action up in Montana, parts of Wyoming, and into Idaho. Of course, we still have all the issues in Southern California. You see the red flag warnings that are up from LA south towards San Diego. The devastation there has been, very, very hard to even imagine. When you look at it, it just seems like something out of a horror movie.
Many
Um,
of the A-listers, many of the famous actors and celebrities, for example, Billy Crystal lived in his house out there 43 years. It's gone, and
yeah.
what are you going to? It's
Well,
horrible. We thought that the ultimate disaster in Los Angeles would result from an earthquake. And guess what?
turns
It
out to
resulted.
be, yeah. And the houses are destroyed. All these houses that were destroyed on the along the beaches in Malibu. I mean, and you got a whole ocean of water there, and it doesn't do you any good. You think your biggest fear is maybe waves and some coastal flooding is if there's some big Pacific storm out there churning up the waters, and it turns out that it was the fire risk, which who could have imagined that would have been the case for the beach homes. You've come to sort of expect it in inland areas inland in the mountains and so on, but not at the coast the way it turned out. Here's our satellite loop tonight. A lot of moisture in the south. You can see a ton of actually that this is an old loop. This is from earlier today. They've been having problems over at Goes. So I just want to take a look at that. Okay, so now it's just updated. So you can see there's still moisture streaming. The northern edge of the southern moisture is right up into Virginia and Delmarva, and you can see that it turns eastward from there. Gets in a little bit into southern New Jersey, but it basically gets shoved to the east. And this is, if you go back not too many days ago, maybe about a week ago, when we had the models trying to make a major storm out of this for the Northeast. But what is clear on the loop is the southern system is here, the northern system is up here, and the two systems really just aren't, they're not phasing, not in the way you would want it to phase if you wanted a big snowstorm. The two systems are staying separate, and it's very clear on the satellite that that is indeed going to be the case, which is why you're not getting big snows, or you're going to get going to get a little bit of snow, but from the upper trough swinging east, and maybe a little of that southern moisture, just the northern fringe of it gets involved, but you're not getting anything of that's appreciable.
The GFS, of course, a week ago phased those two systems and created a monster storm, one that they had projected in some cases would dump like 30 inches of snow in Rockland County. But that was, you and I both saw that. I'm sure, I would hope a lot of people saw that and said, no, I don't think that's going to be the ultimate solution to this problem. And eventually we're able to see that neither system were able to connect or teleconnect with each other, no phasing. And what we're about to see is the result of no phasing. A little light snow. That's it.
Yeah, there's some energy coming into the northwest, and you can see clouds moving across Montana and into the Dakotas. And on the radar up in the northwest part, and then in the northern plains, you're seeing areas of snow into northern South Dakota, parts of Montana and Idaho, and a little bit of rain along the coast in the Pacific Northwest, very little, and some mountain snows, also very relatively little in the Cascades. I don't think there's any issues with SPC, so we can go to WPC with the 7 day precip forecast. So everything you pretty much see in the east, in the coastal plain is front end loaded. So that tenth of an inch that's covering New England down to Virginia is from that northern system swinging through tonight. So you a hundredth to a tenth, and you got a quarter of an inch in southern Virginia. You've got a half inch in eastern North Carolina, some leftover precip in the southern Appalachians. You've got some Gulf Coast moisture that might be around this week, which is why you have half to three quarters right along the immediate coast from just off the Texas coast, southeast Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle. Patches of quarter to a half inch in the Rockies, the central and northern Rockies. No big storms coming in to the western part of the United States. So I want to just point out um, the these last week's storm and this one. I mean, two pretty impressive storm systems, less than a week apart. And of course, the common thread through these to these systems is the fact that they have both taken southern routes. And you wonder, Joe Rayo, if that means that, in spite of what models might be showing down the road, that we might have to consider the fact that everything seems to want to go south. So maybe when the next one sets up, it may want to go south.
It is a possibility. I mean, you figure, as you just pointed out, one went south. Well, and remember the one before this, the system that affected the eastern United States, it too was pretty much a southern
Yes,
system. So
three in
that
a
seems to,
row.
that seems to be the trend.
Three in a row, and it's been my experience in my years that every winter a certain pattern develops where storms, the jackpot zones tend to repeat. So maybe this year it's the Mid Atlantic, the Southeast, the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and that's not to say other places it can't snow, but that the primary trend seems to be that these storms want to go south. Now, if the setup is right, that may be good for snow lovers in the Northeast, but the setup has to be right, and that's always the big question. And this low itself, it's not often you see, not that I won't say it's rare, but it's not often that you see surface lows form in the western Gulf of Mexico and then straddle the Gulf Coast from west to east. But that's pretty much what this one did. And the low is going to be near Charleston at 1 a.m. And then at 7 a.m., it's northeast of the North Carolina coast. And you can see the light snows and the light blue in that are being forecasted overnight into tomorrow morning, up even into the Hudson Valley and into New England. But again, that's all light stuff. The southern stuff is never going to really get involved with all of this. So that goes out. And yeah, Sunday looks like a good day. Monday looks like a good day. And we have a diver here in the Dakotas that's going to turn east into the Great Lakes and push a cold front through. And guess what? The block is going to get reinforced, and that means the wind machine goes on again.
Here we go.
Yep, starting some on Tuesday, but then I think really cranking for Wednesday into maybe the early Thursday, the way it seems. It's a pretty decent shot of cold air that's coming down. And then another front at the end of the week on Friday. Not a whole lot behind that, just kind of sort of the same air mass on either side. And then we've got and the GFS and the European are both showing what looks like a pretty rather large dump of cold Arctic air coming into the U.S. Uh, next Friday and Saturday, first up in the plains. Now, the models have been trying to set up a low a wave on a front that's going to running up to the west side of the Appalachians, and then eventually, would be rain, and then it turns really cold behind it. But as I mentioned earlier, everything seems to want to go south, and the 18Z run tries to bring the front through first, and then brings the wave up, showing maybe a significant snowfall late next weekend. I'm sure this is going to change some more. I actually, Joe, would not be surprised if the cold air was even more important and that it winds up being another storm that takes a track that's even further south than what this is showing.
Yep, yep, that it could very well be. Yeah, there'll be a period when, the snow lovers up here get very excited and say, "Oh, okay, here we go. We're all set." And then as we progress closer to the event, and as you just said, the cold air becomes more important, and so does the block. It gets pushed south. This winter really reminds me of that winter of 72, 73, where we got disappointed over and over and over again, the snow lovers, that is. And meanwhile, the folks to the south got hammered. And I showed last night when we had Rich Rothmansky on the great southern snow of February 9th and 11th, 1973, where parts of the Carolinas got something like 20 inches of snow. And that can happen. That can happen when the cold air gets strong enough and pushes storms far enough to the south. Not going to say if that's going to happen again, but I do want to point out, Joe, that the time frame that we're looking at is right around Inauguration Day, and
Yes.
that may bring back memories of 1961 when John Kennedy had a big snowstorm almost coincide with his inauguration. Actually, it hit Washington the day before, on the 19th, and it was bright and sunny, but cold, and lots of snow on the ground on the day of the inauguration, the 20th. So we'll see. This could be an interesting setup for this year's inauguration. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, the European has the same look as the GFS. It has the same Arctic air mass coming down. In fact, it's even more impressive on on the European. But the European has a stronger wave further west, so that it wants to bring up some sort of inland runner around on January 20th, up the west side of the Appalachians, and it does bring some cold air into the Northeast. But as I said, this one seems to want to be a year where things want to go south, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to see this cold air mass be more overwhelming, and that you could wind up taking another storm further south. Maybe not like what the GFS has, but possibly that, certainly maybe that's on the table. I don't know, but it does seem like this is the way things are going, that we're going to probably have to struggle to get something far enough north rather than deal with something that's going to go to the west. And by the way, there's another even colder air mass that comes down later in that week of the 20th. 504 and 498 thicknesses into the Ohio Valley and Northeast. So pattern looks to stay cold uh, pretty much right through my birthday, which is the 27th. Thought I put that out there. And let's see if we can get a snow event, because I know the snow lovers. Yeah, this is really the ultimate burn, though, for snow lovers when you think about it. Considering how the last couple of winters have gone, okay, which have been really warm and virtually snow free. That now there's so much, this pattern that we have, which is bringing down cold air mass after cold air mass, and you can't seem to do anything with it. Now, you're in the Ohio Valley, if you're in the Tennessee Valley, if you're across the Deep South, you're like, we're getting winter here. But as far as the snow part of it, anyway, but it's got to be a big burn for snow lovers to have a cold pattern like this, the ultimate burn, and not be able to pull off any snow events out of it.
Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. And of course, a lot of people last few years have been saying, where's the cold? How come it doesn't get cold anymore? Why can't we get it cold? You got it cold. But now the problem is you're trying to get those storms to come northward and bring you the snow. And that's been the problem for the last several weeks. And we'll see if that's going to continue to be a problem as we move into the middle and latter part of January.
You don't have storms coming into California. it hasn't, well, it hasn't really rained in many areas in Southern California since May. But
And that's
through
incredible.
through these winter months, with the ridge building in the West Coast has been pretty dry. So you don't, and we don't seem to have at least a southern subtropical jet in play in the way you might like coming in off the Pacific. So that's a problem. Then you have to worry. Then you have to deal with clippers diving down, and maybe there's some southern energy every once in a while, like this system was. So you kind of have to hope that it plays out in similar fashion. It's a very let's call it a very frustrating weather pattern for snow lovers in the Northeast.
Really incredible the difference between what we're seeing in California this winter as opposed to 2 winters ago. We had that very active pattern. The atmospheric river, there must have been something like what, 15 or 16 atmospheric rivers that slammed into the Pacific coast and almost drowned California. In California, the summer before was in like severe or extreme drought, and those atmospheric rivers just wiped all of that out with all that rainfall. Now here we are 2 years later, and there hasn't been a drop. Incredible.
Yep. Let's check the shed, shall we? And if you
The,
like, if you like the view from my shed, hit the like button. But
okay,
this is the view from my shed right now here in North Georgia, with about let's say 3 inches of snow and ice altogether. I think that probably works. And we've got some light snow and maybe a little bit of freezing drizzle in there. So you can see the cameras picking it up. And I'm going to just switch over uh, to the, let's go to, let's look at the front yard and see what that looks like. So this is my front yard. Now there's some light that it's picking up, but you can't really see the snowflakes because it's very, very fine snowflakes. Oh, we got the
the
like
shed,
button here, the 100
the
likes.
shed, the shed hit us. Got us over 100, Joe.
The what?
102,
The
right?
shed.
Yes.
The shed did. Okay, I thought you said some another S
Yes.
word. And
No. No.
uh,
No.
here's the backyard shot. This is another camera from the backyard. So if you can live vicariously through me, folks, that we do still have some snow falling from the sky here in northern Georgia. Do you have Griller Jeopardy?
I do. I do have it.
Okay.
I do have it, and we shall get it if I can get to this quickly enough. Do 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 do. Hang on a momento. And yes,
No,
here we are.
Christinapedia. Well, they weren't bear tracks in the snow. There was either JJ's or mine, depending on how big they were.
Okay, so this Briller Jeopardy average high temperatures. We're away from snow now. Now we're back to temperatures. Average high temperatures in the month of January for the following cities, starting with Baltimore.
Baltimore?
If you're from Baltimore, that's how you say Baltimore.
Sorry,
Baltimore.
Baltimore. I will say
Average high temperature,
I'll say
January.
42.
Close, Joe. In fact, razor thin close.
Okay, so
But
that's
Christopedia also has 42.
William Hooper and Jason Kaplan said 41.
And John Millander, 44. So if we take Joe's 42 and John Millander's 44, we're circling, the
We
wagons are
get
circling, so to
we get
speak.
Mike Waterhouse Bonsai and Vincent Croce at 43.
There you go.
Okay.
That's it. Here's Beantown, Boston. Average high temperature in January.
Boston,
Yes, Boston.
I'll say 36.
And you would again be razor thin close to that.
Richard Bond said 37. And
And
Latex
he
Dreams
got it. He got
30,
it.
37.
37 degrees.
All right, so did Frank Scalera.
Thank you, Frank. He said
Next,
18. Somebody said 18. Did I see an 18 there?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Adam
Allen.
said 18.
Allen. No, no, it's not 18, Allen. How about Buffalo?
I'll say for Buffalo, I'll say 32. Ding,
Ding,
zing.
ding, 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 ding. You're on fire tonight, Joe. You've been doing 1 degree of the first two, and you hit the third on the nose.
Yeah,
How about? And I mentioned this last night. I mentioned how in 1973 I was listening to this radio station from the Bronx on my radio. DXing is the term when you're able to hear radio stations from far, far away on your AM dial. Charlotte, North Carolina, WBT. Charlotte,
why
North
did I had
Carolina.
a feeling you were going to say Charlotte. I'm going to say for Charlotte, 40, 45.
Way too low, Joe.
Oh, really? It's higher than that. Okay. Christinapedia said 49.
Well, we already have a winner, Kenneth Rosenberg, with 52.
Charlotte's
And if you
average high
realize
temperature is 52 for January?
Charlotte average, that's what
Wow.
the chairman has indicated,
All right.
which makes that 20 inches of snow that plopped on the Carolinas in 1973 all the more spectacular when you
Yes.
consider that in Charlotte, 52 is the normal high in January. Um, and the city number 5 is the Windy City, Chicago. Average high temperature
I'll
in
say
January.
I'll say 35.
That is close. It is a pretty good guess, but it's a little bit on the high side for Chicago.
Frank R said 34. Rich Rothmansky said 32. Frank Scalera said 33.
And he's right. 33. William Huber with 33 as well. 33, the average high temperature in January in Chicago. And there is a bonus. And the bonus is International Falls, Minnesota.
Oh,
Average high temperature
oh, what do
in
you do with
January.
that?
And I'm going to assure you it's nowhere near Charlotte's 52.
Right, no, I understand. That's a good hint to have. Um, huh. Boy, I'm just, I'll take a stab in the dark. I'll say 19.
Too high, believe it or not.
Is it? Yeah.
But our colleague, Rich Rothmansky, congratulations, Rich. You get the
14.
14 degrees. Can you imagine
Oh,
living in a place where the average high each day in January is 14? But there
yeah,
you
I don't
go.
know. Did you ever see the movie Fargo?
No.
It's a great movie. There's a scene, I think it was in Fargo, there's a scene where the cops are looking for somebody and they pass by somebody's house and they're out there shoveling. Um, they're shoveling away some snow, and the guy comments about the fact that uh, the temperature is above zero. It's really warm out. He's out in he's out like just in his shirt, and he's pushing snow along, and he's just saying, just makes the comment about how the weather got warm because it went up above zero. So anyway, yeah, the body gets acclimated to it. It
I
just
know.
does. It just
Bill
does.
Goodman, our friend Bill Goodman on Facebook, posted this just 59 minutes ago, just about an hour ago. He says, looks like I'm driving into work in a little snow on Saturday morning. Amounts will be mostly under an inch for New York City and Philadelphia metro area, 1 to 2 inches for most of Delmarva over to Wildwood and Cape May. Latest guidance shows potential for some small areas over an inch elsewhere, but I cannot pinpoint them at this moment in time. Then he says something about this person, Stevie Colomera Meta. I don't know who Stevie
That's a
Colomera.
friend of his.
Excuse me?
That's a friend of his.
Okay. He says multiply that by 24, Stephen Calametta, and you'll be way happier than you were about not watching the game last
I'm sorry, Joe.
night. Bill Goodman.
I cut in your audio there. I just want to show this off Facebook. This is what the local roads here, one of the local roads here, not that far away, looked like today. So, so there you go. This is what happens when you drive too fast in Hiawassee.
Oh, oh,
Craziest thing just happened. Moving up in
yeah, we just can't do anything when it's icy.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
You
it
talk
was,
about white knuckles. That's like,
oh yeah, definitely.
those are albino knuckles.
Definitely a white knuckle kind of day. Um, so, all right. So, you know what? We're going to take Sunday off because we've only had one day off in the last 2 weeks. Ruben Fairchild, get over it. We'll be back Monday night. Nothing's going to happen this weekend other than what's happening tonight. So we'll be back Monday night at 7:35 p.m. Everybody have a great and safe weekend. If you're watching from the deep south, thaw out, double your snow and ice, and be careful tomorrow morning because it's going to be below freezing in a lot of these areas, and anything that's on the ground tonight. You know, it was freezing rain all day in the metro Atlanta area. I was really, I use this today as a big learning experience for me because of the mountains, trying to figure out, the change over time and all the rest of it. And the cold air, even south of the mountains down toward Atlanta, Atlanta's got a lot of hills and it's very, elevation is about 800 feet on average above sea level there. So it's not on flat land. And a lot of cold air got drained down and got trapped there during the day. Most places stayed at 32. And in fact, one of the reporters I was watching, the ground temperatures, because the nights here have been really cold, the ground temperatures were about 3 degrees lower than the actual air temperature.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. Yep.
So it was a very fascinating day here in the northern half of Georgia, and particularly because some of the heaviest snow amounts were actually down in the metro Atlanta area. All the forecasters kind of thought it would be up here where I am. We got about the same that they got down there, and then the folks in between got less. So it was just kind of a bit bizarre, but this is what happened. There's always a jackpot zone, and then there's always the how do we call that nicely?
The Gomer Pyle
The
zone.
Culver
Surprise,
Supply.
surprise, surprise.
Right, exactly. And then there's the zone that gets screwed. I guess that's the best way we can put it. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. See you on Monday. Take care,
Be safe. Thank you for the 119 likes.
and thank you for the super chat, Ken Musillo.